Thank you for listening to this Podcast One production. Now available on Apple Podcasts, Podcast One, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers. A dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends. A place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view. But when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
I'm back at it, son. I'm out on the road again.
That's
having fun with my friends.
Yeah.
I don't know the rest of that country song, Tim, but we're back at it.
It's all right.
We're out here staying safe. I want to address something a little weird, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Before we get started.
Uh-huh.
The world is in a crazy place right now.
Yep.
And just keeps getting crazier. And you know, as somebody that's in the media, we're put in a precarious position from our followers and friends of the show. Mm-hmm. They want us to weigh in on things. We are special and our voices should be heard. Here's the deal. There is a big aspect to that is true. Everybody should be heard. Everyone should step up. I try to keep my life as decluttered as I can of hate and animosity. That's why we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about a lot of what's going on in the world. We try to keep this place a safe haven. And although we tried to avoid COVID, a lot of the stories that came up were COVID related. You know, people being locked in a quarantine house that was haunted. But we're not making that the crux of the story.
Yeah. And
we've dabbled with that with true crime as well, because there's been a lot of dumb crime, stupid criminal COVID cases that, you know, are worthy of our time. Obviously, our great state of Minnesota has been in the news for quite a few weeks now, and people are asking what our thoughts are. And I've been reluctant to post or say anything because everything that's said seems to be corruptible and can be misread. And I posted finally something I thought that captured the true essence of what's going on, only because I just thought it was so beautifully and eloquently stated in this image. So I posted it and made it available. And unfortunately, exactly what I was afraid would happen happened. And what it was is a beautiful little African-American girl holding a sign that said, "We said Black Lives Matter, never said only Black Lives Matter. We know all lives matter. We just need your help with hashtag Black Lives Matter, for Black lives are in danger." I just thought that was one of the most succinct, beautiful sentiments of it all. When people are supporting Black Lives Matter, it's not saying that other lives don't matter. It's saying that in this moment, in our point in history, these last few weeks, it's important that the Black community, African American community, knows that there is support out there. And I thought this succinctly said that, you know, it's not saying that Black lives are the only lives that matter. It's never said that, you know, of course it's understood all lives matter. It's just right now, let's all stand together as a community. And if these moments can stop where brutality is taken out on anybody, police have a job to do, and it's a tough job, and it's in a job of heightened stress, and bad decisions are made. New protocols need to be put in play. New training methods need to be put in to teach people and monitor these things. And when you have officers of the law, the ones that are there to protect and serve, when they are not following the letter of the law themselves and they're doing improper things that cost lives, penalties should be put in play. I come from a long line of police officers. You know, my biological father was a cop. My great-grandfather was a cop, his father before him. So I am friends with police. One of my closest, dearest, best friends is a police officer. And these are good, moral, righteous men. It is not easy to state, because when you post a Black Lives Matter, people then think you're turning your back on law enforcement. And if you place something that says that police lives matter as well, then you're racist. It puts people like Tim and I in an awkward position, because there's no one clear way to say how you feel about these type of situations, without seeming to offend somebody. And in placing that one simple picture up on my Instagram and Facebook page, it drew so much ire and anger and hatred. I've spent most of my day just erasing the most inflammatory comments, because I don't want to live in a space full of hate all the time. And it's not me keeping myself isolated or insular from the world around me. It's we have enough chaos around me. I'm going to try to control the little things I can. Mm-hmm. So we don't always post about these things. It doesn't mean we don't care. It doesn't mean we don't have skin in the game. It doesn't mean that we don't have a strong moral compass. Listen, my daughter is half black. Tim's life, his stepfather that he loved very much was black. And, we're not immune or deaf to the needs of the community that's in such chaos right now. And people do have to realize there is a difference between protesters and looters. You are correct. The people exploiting, looting, damaging, starting fires, and provoking fights, they are not the protesters. There is a difference. There are some that take advantage of a situation of every race to do as much damage as they can in these critical moments. And lumping protesters in with the people that are doing the real harm is unfair. Lumping people in that support the Black Lives Matter campaign and saying that then they don't believe in this, that, or the other is ridiculous. What we're just saying is right now we all need to be together. I'm embarrassed, Tim, that it's 2020 and we still judge each other by the color of our skins.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah.
That we are still in a position where that matters. Oh, well, this group acts like a bunch of animals when this happens, or that group acts like psychopaths when this happens, or the whites are always No, there's no one race that's ever right. There's bad people in every race, every gender, every religious belief system. You will find bad people across the board. There is no one specific group that is immune to any other. So what we need to do as humanity is just come together and stop the bullshit, stop the hatred, stop the slinging. But Dave, I already hear your emails. Don't email me. Don't send me your hate bullshit. I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't have time for it. Yes, we do need to come together. And there has to be somebody that bends. Let's be the ones that bend. And I'm not speaking for the white race. I'm speaking for all listeners of every race, religion, and creed. Be the first to bend and start to understand, because if there was more understanding and more patience with one another, there would be less agitation and anger, leaps to frustration, because then the new norm would be understanding that people are going to try to be more loving and caring and understanding of one another, accepting of each other's differences, instead of automatically assuming it's them against us in any form. So this is all I have to say on all of this. And there is no right answer specifically, because every answer will piss off some other grouping. We are about love. We are about entertaining and having fun together. We love every one of the listeners that go along on this journey with us, and we don't care what their background is, how they were raised, what color they are, what religion they believe in, what sexuality that they're a part of. And I'm going to reserve my right as a human to not post things that I think will incite anger from either side. I'm not going to post things or do things I think that will cause more derision, because that's something we don't need any more of. So we are radio hosts that talk about the paranormal world. Please accept us for who we are, and don't question us or think that we're cowards because we don't stand up and thrust our fist in the air one way or another. We're trying to do a very hard job, which is to be peacekeepers, to stand in a place of love for all. And that's all that we can do. And that may sound like a cop-out, but by setting good examples of not leading people into tirades of hatred, by not leading people down pathways of ignorance, then there is nothing that will incite you from what we do. So if we can all agree to come together 2 or 3 times a week to laugh, to think, to be scared, that's what we want to bring to you. And I'm speaking for myself on this, so I'll be quiet now and let Tim wrap it up. But just please understand, when you don't see us posting, it's not because we don't care. It's because we don't want to add more flash to either side of the fire.
If I can just add to what you've said, and it's this. I have a stepdad, stepsisters, cousins that are black, and I have a very good friend who works on the south side of Minneapolis for the Minneapolis Police Department that I got to know through IWI Wrestling, former wrestler. And man, my heart's been torn for over a week and a half. Torn in that, not on one side or the other, because there's nothing to be torn about there. Torn in that I worry about everybody. And that's as much as you're going to get out of me. I worry about everybody's safety. That's what I worry about. That's all you need to know. I just want everybody to be safe, be happy, be loved, and be treated as equals. And I'm most disappointed in the people who call themselves my friends, who have hit me up unsolicited on social media and have thrown their opinions at me first. Not, hey, Tim, how you doing? I really appreciate those people who just want to know how I'm doing and want to know how you're doing and want to know that we're safe. That's it. Hey, are you safe? Yeah, that's fine. With the misconception that we live in the middle of South Minneapolis, which, most people don't know where exactly we live, which that's okay. And we appreciate that. But it's the people that go, well, I think this. Well, you know what? I don't give a shit what you think. I read your opinion on your board, and I get it. That's what you think, one way or another. That's fine.
Well, and let us clarify. When we say we don't give a shit what you think, it doesn't mean we don't care that you have thoughts regarding this. But bringing it to our doorstep, throwing it on our pages and loading our email with hatred that's unsolicited is what we're talking about. Right, and I didn't finish
my thought there. But that's exactly what I meant. I don't give a shit if you throw it on my doorstep. I don't care. I don't care. If I want to go read what you think, I'll go read what you think. The deal is, I'm not throwing it out there for you to see because it's what I think and what I feel. And what I think and what I feel is personal and private to me. I have skin in both games. And I'm going to keep it that way. We do things behind the scenes as well, donations and support and love that we don't feel we need accolades for. We don't need to piss people off because somebody will take a good move
and turn it into something else. And you may think that we're being oversensitive about this, but listen, we've raised hundreds of thousands, if not almost $1 million worth of charity money. And in doing so, we've even had people attack us saying that we've only given a portion of the proceeds to charity and that we've ripped off charities. When we've had the people there from the charity collect every dollar, every penny that comes in, we don't even touch the money. People always want to weigh in, not knowing what they're talking about and just looking to cause problems. So it's easier for us to try to be the place for you all to come for fun and enjoyment and entertainment, and let the rest of the world feed you the rest of the information you seek. Our opinion to you really doesn't matter, except for the fact that know that we're on the side of right, love, kindness, forgiving, understanding, and tolerance for all. And that should be all that you need to know about Dave and Tim and where we stand on these moments. Fair enough, Tim?
I guess so, sure.
Well, I mean, do you disagree in that?
No, I don't disagree at all. No,
right.
No.
I know there's so much more. It's like we both want to add, but adding will only end up giving you again more fodder to be an ad. I can already. We're not even done recording this episode, and I can already precognitively tell you I'll have 30 emails regarding this within the next 24 hours that will have missed every point that we just made. So it's a weird time to be alive, man. And I just hope people will find a way to find peace in themselves and with each other and come together. With that said, let's get started. We've got some news to share. We've got your stories to share as well. And Tim, I've been talking about it. It's time to put the big news out there. There's a 1-hour special that premieres this Thursday, June 11th at 10 p.m. Eastern and Pacific time, 9 p.m. Central and Mountain Time, I believe. The Holzer Files Decrypted, in a brand new special of the Holzer Files, a dedicated paranormal team led by investigator Dave Schrader. Hey, that's me. Psychic medium Cindy Keza and equipment technician Shane Pittman. We're investigating terrifying true hauntings from the recently discovered case files of America's first ghost hunter, Dr. Hans Holzer, and exclusively reopening Holzer's most captivating case files for the first time. We're digging into thousands of documents, letters, photographs, and chilling audio and visual recordings dating back into the 1950s. And in the new special that will air this Thursday, June 11th, we're going to look back together at some of our scariest, most insane, and sometimes outrageous moments that have happened during season 1. Plus, we'll answer burning viewer-submitted questions. We're going to give you some insider information and insights, and even offer up some new, never-before-seen footage and evidence. That's this Thursday. And what? That's not enough for you? Well, I'll be hosting a series of these little specials. As a matter of fact, there's a 1-hour special that'll be premiering Thursday, June 18th, called Destination Fear Behind the Screams. And for those of you still not familiar, Destination Fear is a haunted road trip turned terrifying sleepover. You have brother and sister duo Dakota Layden and Chelsea Layden, best friend Tanner Wiseman, and their friend and camera operator Alex Schrader, no relation. They confront their fears as they pile into their RV and hit the road on a nail-biting cross-country journey to pursue paranormal evidence, spending the night inside America's most haunted abandoned buildings. And in the special episode that's coming up on Thursday, June 18th, I'll be joined by Dakota, Chelsea, Tanner, and Alex, and we'll look back together again at some of the scariest and most insane moments from last season. Plus, they're going to answer your questions, burning questions that have been submitted through Twitter after they release some of the clips. And they're going to give you some insider information, insights, and even offer up, again, some more bonus footage and evidence. That takes place on Thursday, June 18th. So Thursday, June 11th, the Holzer Files Decrypted. On June 18th, Destination Fear Behind the Screams. And there should be a few more specials coming out over the few weeks after that. So we'll keep updating you as that information is made available to us. But I got to tell you, that was a lot of fun, Tim, to film.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We just had such a wonderful time getting in there and, kind of getting a chance to re-examine what we did in season 1 and see all of these really beautiful moments that we shared together as a team that were terrifying and brought us together in ways that I didn't think, was possible, because we're looking at these cases that we're so lucky to have access to and re-examining them and finding, new angles to the history that, that Hans Holzer so eloquently opened. We're helping to kind of put a new period on a lot of these cases. And it's just exciting to be a part of that special. So with three of us getting together again to do that a few weeks back and create this special, I think you guys are going to enjoy it.
Very cool.
If you want to talk about ghosts, who are you going to call? Well, obviously, the Holzer Files. But when we're not available, call Dan Aykroyd. His fascination with the paranormal started in childhood. He channeled that fascination into a particularly well-known movie, Tim, about ghosts. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, it was called My Girl.
Yeah. That's right. I have seen that, yeah.
It's a comedy, of course, called Ghostbusters. But Aykroyd's interest in the paranormal is really actually no laughing matter. He explores his curiosity about ghosts and ghost stories as the narrator of a new television show called Hotel Paranormal, airing on the T&E channel in Canada. The 10-part documentary series, produced by Toronto-based Saloon Media, a Blue Ant media company, features stories about people who claim to have encountered ghosts and otherworldly phenomena in hotels. The Globe and Mail's Dave McGinn spoke to Aykroyd by phone about his family history in the cult, and there were some really interesting answers I wanted to share with the audience today. I thought this was a really insightful little article. If you didn't get a chance to hear the two interviews that we've done with Dan Aykroyd in the past, I wanted to kind of re-engage you with this. His great-grandfather was a spiritualist who actually held seances. There's a book called History of Ghosts that Dan Aykroyd's father wrote, and it's about mediumship and the interest in it from the Aykroyd family. His great-grandfather was the reviewer of all the psychic acts who came through town, and he was associated with the Lilydale community in New York, where, again, today you can go and get a reading from a registered psychic medium. He passed this information and fascination on to his son, and then on to Dan's father, Peter Aykroyd, and they wanted to know what was going on and like things. How is levitation possible? Is ectoplasm real? And they wanted to do an inquiry, and they passed it on to Dan Aykroyd, who kept this fascination with the paranormal going. So it's not just a comic foil idea for a movie. The Aykroyd family is entrenched into this 3 or 4 generations deep. And here was a big question. Did you have any input in the new Ghostbusters? And he said, I gave Jason Reitman, who's directing the movie, my view on how I thought writing could be made, and pointed out a few points here and there. I gave my advice and counsel, and I was mostly in agreement with Ivan and Jason with what should be in the movie. There was really no dispute or anything. It's his story and his take, and he's made it his own. And it's really, really good. That's what Dan Aykroyd's saying. So that's a plus. And then they asked, why did you want to be a part of the new show on T&E? And he said, I love the T&E treatment of these subjects because they're sympathetic to what these people have gone through. They kind of bust through a little skepticism. Why would these people say they had experiences that were so hard on them? The evidence and anecdotal and depicted, as well as the actual iPhone and camera footage of the psychokinetic events associated with the material, is very convincing. Hopefully someone out there, maybe even multiple people in the scientific community, will start to make inquiry now into what is actually going on. They asked, of course, are you a true believer? And he said, I've been told spectacular ghost stories by people who know that I'm going to take them seriously. I'm not going to laugh at them. I look at these experiences and I go, boy, you really tell me a vivid story that I can believe. And the new T&E show is chock full of that kind of stuff. It's fun, entertaining, and scary, and gives one pause. Not every experience with the paranormal is pleasant, and there are many that are not. And then they asked, is there one story from the new show that's really stuck with you? And he said, yeah, a guy in New Mexico in a hotel there had to have religious intervention at the end. It's a demonic entity that clung to him. And he said the story is so beautifully depicted as well. And here we'll kind of wrap up with this question. There was more to it, and the article is really well done, but I like this one. What continues to interest you about the paranormal? And Dan Aykroyd says, I think who it happens to, people who are vulnerable, who have been brought down by life stresses, who have been weakened, they need conviction in life or they're missing something, a state of psychic compromised immunity, you could call it. That's what I love about the T&E approach to it. They treat the cases very sympathetically because they know these people have been through a war-like trauma in some cases. So for those of you in Canada, you're going to want to watch out for Dan Aykroyd's new show called, I believe it's called Hotel Paranormal. And it'll be on the T&E channel, and I'm hoping it's going to make its way over to America. Usually Travel Channel loves to pick these kind of program bits up, so I'm hoping that that'll be the case. And we'll get to see that show actually air here as well.
Most definitely. I think besides backing up the Brinks truck to get him involved with a paranormal series, I'm wondering, getting him, what it would take to get him involved with a paranormal series after all these years. Because, years ago, we had him on to talk about the DVD he had on UFOs. But, that was the UFO set. Now there's the paranormal set. And we did talk to him about ghosts and whatnot, too, years ago. My thought is to get him involved in a regular series on television, to get him that much exposure on the paranormal. I don't know. I wonder why the TV turn instead of the focus on movies. To me, it's kind of an odd career choice, but a cool one at that.
Well, he's done other TV programs like this in the past as well. Where he's investigated the claims of the paranormal. So, yeah, it's great to see him kind of come back to this, and I look forward to seeing what his insights are on these cases as well.
Yeah.
A scared man films Annabelle dolls in his home moving on their own. And according to this article, Tim, it's the stuff of nightmares.
Uh-oh.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
According to the author of said article, Marina Palouse, she says, I said it when I was 8, and I'm saying it again. Dolls suck. I have no idea why kids love them with those lifeless eyes and terrifying smile. They are made to scare people. I got to agree. I've been to a lot of haunted places, and I've been to antique shops all around. And when I see some of these dolls, I'm like, what in God's green earth made them think, yeah, this is something kids are going to love? Yeah. Some dolls are terrifying to look at.
They're not the best thing, no. They're the things and stuff of nightmares.
Yeah. Well, you'd think some people would grow out of their fear of dolls. However, that's not the case for all. Like one gentleman in particular who ended up experiencing something paranormal at his home when he was all alone. Chad Gassert, who was alone in his home in Ohio, ran to his bedroom in sheer terror after he filmed his wife's dolls moving on their own inside a glass cabinet. The twist here is this is the second time that this has happened to him. A few months earlier, Chad had experienced something similar with the trio of dolls in his home, which is why he decided to film the paranormal activity in his living room just so he could show everyone. The spine-chilling footage shows one of the dolls move forward on its own accord as Chad films the glass cabinet where the porcelain dolls were kept. And there are 3 creepy-looking, just doe-eyed, baby-like dolls. Just with those dead black eyes. While the camera continues to film as Chad repeatedly says, "The dolls keep moving," a pile of clothes falls onto the floor with literally no one near them. All right, so you've got multiple things that are taking place. Chad then completely loses it in the video as one of the dolls tips over sideways with its feet knocking against the glass cabinet. I'm in my room right now watching the door. I wish it was trickery. Wife is gone at the moment. I'm the only one here. I'm still a little shook. I went to my bedroom and was looking at the door waiting for that MFer to bust through it. This is the second time this has happened now. Last time was just the doll that moved, and now a completely different doll is moving, and clothes just fall off the couch. It only happens when I'm here by myself, he was quoted as saying by the Lad Bible, Tim. Uh-oh. After Chad posted the footage online, naturally people could witness the paranormal happenings as some of them claimed to see a pair of eyes behind the doll just before they moved, and a couple also said they saw the doll sit straight back up. Of course, people offered Chad a string of options, the most common one being to leave the damn house immediately. Some even suggested he just straight up burn the dolls. What do you think of that, Tim? Should he just burn the damn dolls?
No. Here's why. And here's the theory that I've been thinking of. No doll has ever straight up gone Chucky on anyone, as far as we know. I don't know of any documented cases where a doll has straight up.
I thought we had an episode or two of Theater of the Mind where people were kind of terrorized by a doll. I mean, it didn't end up cutting their Achilles heel or try to, rip their jugular off, but there have been a few of these dolls that have scared the living poop out of people.
Scared them, yeah, but not to the point where it's picked up a knife and chased them through the house and slashed them up, and a cop has caught them in the middle of making them into Vichy soie or whatever. I mean, it's so in my opinion, you're not in danger. I mean, sure. I mean, maybe the doll can manipulate something to fall on you, but I don't think ever kill you. I mean, I don't know why I'm repeating everything twice. Maybe I'm afraid of the doll, but I don't want
to try to convince yourself.
Right. Maybe there's a doll within reach somewhere here in the old studio. I don't know. I'm looking around real quick to see, but I'm thinking to myself that there's not much of a Danger was a band back in the 80s. But, I'm thinking, why not? Why not take the chance that not much is going to happen? Don't
kick
burn
it. Yeah. Right? I mean, if you see the doll chucking at you, you just reel back 1 foot and send him across the room.
Well, here's the thing. What's wrong with a good old-fashioned wrestling match with a doll? Get a few shots in.
I like it.
Yeah.
Unless they have like supernatural strength or something, but they're still tiny. How much supernatural strength can a little doll have?
That's right. And if it gets down to a good old-fashioned West Side Story knife fight, I think you're going to win. I think you've got the size advantage.
I gotcha. When you're a doll all the way, Tim.
That's right.
Hello, Tim and Dave. That's how this email starts off.
Hiya.
And then it goes into parentheses saying, my girlfriend made me put Tim first.
Yeah.
See? Yeah, Charles, I knew this wasn't a natural start to an email. This was a very brief experience lasting only seconds. That's what she said. It happened tonight on the 1st. I ran down to Hy-Vee about 6 miles from where I live after my fiance got home from work to get spaghetti stuff. I get the stuff, was there probably 5 minutes. I head back out on the road to leave the larger town just south of where I live. About a mile up the highway, I was driving in the dark when my radio decided to mute itself after a few seconds of static. In a split second, on this divided 4-lane highway, 2 large shapes rushed past my Jeep going the opposite direction. They appeared to be very large, dog-looking shapes, bigger than mastiffs. I jerked the wheel in a panic to the right and touched the rumble bars momentarily. After a minute of heart palpitations, I resumed home. They were nightmarish. Thank you and have a good week. That comes from Charles and his overbearing girlfriend insisting on putting your name first from Nebraska, Tim.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That touches my heart today.
Whatever. Yeah. Whatever. Our next one says, oh boy, I don't even know how to, they're really going deep into the thesaurus for this one, Tim. I don't even know how to say these words.
Okay.
Decidious? DECIDUOUOUOUS, whatever. Decidious Dave and Territory Tim. TERTIARY. I don't gotta whip out the old thesaurus, Tim. Excuse me while I whip this out. Whoa. Yeah. I found your guys' show about a year ago after an appearance on Talk is Jericho. It would seem wrestling marks and interest in all things paranormal kind of go hand in hand.
They do?
Interesting phenomena. He writes, I was a huge Art Bell and George Norrie fan, so after finding you guys, I've been hooked ever since, even going back into your archives to listen to some older stuff. Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, very nice.
I'd call your hotline, but I have, as they say, a face for radio and a voice for print. Ooh, I've never heard that. A voice for print. I like that.
I've never heard it either. Good one.
My story goes along with a lot of the Navy stories you've been hearing about and reporting on lately. I enlisted in the Navy in 2003 and was retired in 2009 after a freak accident cost me my right leg above the knee. But that's a story for a different show.
No.
This story goes back to my 2007 deployment on board the USS Mahan. And what is this? Aerie Burke class guided missile destroyer. I was a third class petty officer at the time, and one of my collateral duties was nozzle man on the refueling team during flight quarters helicopter operations, Tim.
I was nozzle man.
He put that in parentheses, so I knew what that meant, just to let you go.
Oh, I was nozzle man on a keg at college. So,
yeah, you were.
Yeah.
Quite the nozzle man.
Yeah.
This particular event took place somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic. I don't know exactly where, Tim. I was an engineer, not a navigator. Sheesh. I guess he thought you were going to get all specific on him there.
Oh.
Anyway.
Sorry.
It was somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic, and I believe it was July. We were conducting nighttime destroyer landing qualifications. It was an eerily still night, and more eerie yet was the night sky was starless, so navigating the flight deck was a bit treacherous. We had all taken our positions on the deck in anticipation of the helo to arrive. We were out there for what seemed to be half an hour, but no sight of the helo. It was running behind schedule. Suddenly, and what seemed to be out of nowhere, a series of bright lights appeared in the sky, maybe 20 feet above the water. They moved at a good pace from forward to aft until after they came to a stop directly above us. They made no sound. No, Dave, none at all. That's what no sound means. Wow, he's taking a shot at me, Tim.
Yeah.
No electrical hum, no mechanical whine, nothing. Can I continue? Thank you. Where was I?
Wow.
This guy's, I like that he writes like we would be having this conversation, so I appreciate it.
That's good.
Oh, yes, the lights were hovering over us. They seemed so close you could almost reach out and touch whatever it was. Due to these being the only lights in the sky, so you had no reference points for perception of distance, 20 feet or so above has always been my best guess. We all stood there looking up in stunned silence. No one dared say a word. No one looked at anyone else for confirmation on what we were seeing, probably out of fear that each one of us thought we were the only ones seeing this. The lights themselves seemed to generate from nowhere. They were rectangular in shape, and you couldn't make out any physical structure between the lights. To me, it felt like the lights were part of one large object, for lack of a better word. I say this because while there was nothing you could visually or audibly discern from it, from the way the lights moved in unison was just too perfect to have been multiple objects, and it seemed to generate an almost palpably large energy. I'm unsure on the passage of time that object hovered for, but at some point a new light appeared in the sky at the horizon. After a few moments, we could hear the familiar whine and chop of a helo as it came closer. As the helo got nearer, the silent object appeared to get either bored with us or irritated that someone else was about to join our party. It quickly moved off toward the bow of the ship and onward from there, leaving just as silently as it had arrived. I'm not sure when it actually disappeared from sight, as I didn't want to get caught rubbernecking at the thing. We all went about business as usual when the helo arrived. No one said anything to anyone, and we all went out about our night after the helo left and flight quarters was secured. About a month later, still on deployment, I ran into a couple of boatswain mates who were chalk and chainmen on the flight quarter crew of the mess decks. Sorry about the long sentence here. I feel like William Shatner and just inserting commas and semicolons. I'm horrible with punctuation. I was like, hey, do you guys remember the night ops we did last month? They were like, you mean the one with the effing UFO? I'm like, holy shit. So I wasn't the only one that saw it. They said no. And that they discussed it with some of the other guys as well. There wasn't much talk other than that. I think for me, there was just the need for confirmation that I wasn't alone in what I saw in the dark. Eerie, starless night. I still remember it like it just happened last week. I'll forever be a believer in the unknown after that night. Not sure what it was, but I'm hoping that since the Navy is releasing reports on UFOs, that maybe one day soon it'll at least be acknowledged, be it alien in nature or some sort of experimental craft the latter of which I highly doubt due to its nature and behavior. So that's my story. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Keep up the good work, Tim and Dave. Cheers from James Robbins. Sorry.
Oh,
that was a hell of a story, James. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
I like that. I like when we can hear from our service people who have had these experiences. I don't know about you. It just always makes it feel more real.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got more to discuss, more stories to share, more news from around the world right here on Darkness Radio.
Hey, hey, hey. This is NFL Hall of Famer Ray Lewis. I'm excited to announce the launch of my new podcast, Everyday Greatness, the Ray Lewis Podcast. I'll be talking with friends, family members, old teammates, athletes, celebrities, moguls, and guess what? I'll be talking to you. Listen, this is all in the search for everyday greatness. So I'm asking you to come along with me on this ride. Download new episodes of Everyday Greatness, the Ray Lewis Podcast, every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on podcast1.com. It's not what you have, it's what's inside of you that actually inspires greatness.
We are back. This is the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm Dave Schrader. That's Tim Dennis. This is Darkness Radio. Are you ready for more tales of wonder from around the world, Tim?
Boy, am I.
Don't order the spirits. Ghosts are haunting the pub run by bake-off judge Paul Hollywood's girlfriend, according to spook hunters, Tim.
Really?
Yeah, ghosts are haunting the pub run by bake-off judge Paul Hollywood's girlfriend, according to spook hunters. They claim 36-year-old Melissa Spalding's boozer, the Checkers Inn, is known for giving scared staff a bit of a soggy bottom, Tim. You heard that right. Paranormal investigator Andy Ayers, 51, said a lady who worked there saw a rocking chair rocking on its own accord, glasses smashing freely and regularly. Paul, age 54, met Melissa at the pub, which is also his local in Smarden, Kent. It is also claimed the spirit of a soldier from the Napoleonic Wars, apparently murdered while staying at the 14th century coaching inn, has spooked people there. And it is even said that the ghoul of the notorious 18th century highwayman Dick Turpin has been seen there, Tim. Nobody wants to see a ghoul named Dick.
I never did anything to that Turpin, Dave. You can't prove anything. No.
There's been reports of a rough, handsome man dressed in green velvet, a tri-corner hat, and riding boots. Green velvet? Do you appear on Wild Wild West? Talk about a weird, obscure reference. Spook hunter Mr. Ayre said the Dick Turpin link is probably a bit spurious. He would have to have been very busy to get around to so many places. The Napoleonic soldier link is more realistic because there were more of them, hundreds, if not thousands, who would have gone into that pub, Tim.
Wow.
Huh?
Wow.
Huh?
Wow.
So I know what you're thinking. I can almost sense it in the way that you look at me, Tim.
You do?
You're thinking, but Dave, could that possibly be the only reality show and star story that we have this week? Is that really all that you brought to me?
Is that all, Dave?
Tim, why do you have to ask so many questions? Can't you just go with the flow and see what else I've got to share with you?
You know me, Dave. I'm not a passive ninny just sitting here pushing buttons. Okay, I'm a passive ninny that's just sitting here pushing buttons. But, Dave, is that the only story you brought to us from a reality show this week?
90 Day Fiancé, Paul Stolly. How do you say that? I don't watch 90 Day Fiancé.
I don't
watch it?
I don't either, no.
Yeah. Well, have. I've got a reality story for you, Tim.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. If you're ready. Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah. He believes that he's convinced that his house is haunted. The TLC celeb got the scare of his life after filming what he claimed to be a ghost in their living room. Paul shares the haunted house with his wife. Karen Martins and their son Pierre. His mom, Edna, is allegedly living with them as well. Is the creepy video enough proof to say that Paul Stolley's home has a ghost, or is he simply being paranoid? Well, earlier this week, Paul Stolley got creeped out by paranormal activities at his home. The 90-day fiancé veteran and the spooky incidents are becoming more frequent lately, he said, keeping him up at night. It seems Corrine Martin's husband is almost at his wit's end as the scary events continue. In a recent video post, Paul Stolley shared how the supposed ghost terrifies the household. He said the unseen entity usually does hair-raising stuff in the family room between 2 and 4 in the morning. Paul added that the ghost likes to play with his son's toys, particularly the bubble lawnmower, Tim.
No.
The bubble lawnmower of death. The 90-day fiancé celeb said that the toy would move across the floor on its own, even though it's not battery-operated.
What?
Paul Stolley also pointed out that the same toys, not tomes, Tim, same toys never move on their own in Pierre's room, making the incident even creepier. To prove his claim, words is tough, Tim.
They are.
Prove his claims, not to prove his lames. To prove his claims, Paul Stolley sent up a camera. I don't know why I can't speak today. To prove his claims, Paul Stolley set up a camera in his family room. The 90-day fiancé, happily ever after returnee. I don't know how many more times they're going to mention what show he was a part of, Tim, but let's just do a quick test. What show is he from, Tim?
90-day fiancé, Dave.
You're right. Yeah. Yep. He seemed determined to catch the spirit in action, and it looked like the ghost didn't disappoint him. In another post, Corrine Martin's spouse shared footage he captured on his hidden camera. He completed the spooky vibe with the Ghostbuster theme song playing in the background, which is copyright infringement, and we're going to report that to ASCAP and BMI, Tim, because that's the kind of guys we are. That's where the ground is that we stand.
That's right.
The clip showed Paul's empty living room at 2:16 a.m. Across the room was Pierre's ride-on toy. Paul Stolley positioned it right behind the 2 flags he had set up on the floor. At first, the video showed no movement in the room at all, but after a few minutes, Pierre's toy suddenly moved forward on its own, and its lights turned on. The 4-wheel toy appeared to have moved a few steps away from the 90-day fiancé's stars flags marker. What show is he from, Tim?
90-day fiancé, Dave.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. Despite the evidence, some do not believe Paul Stolley had an encounter with a ghost. They think the 90-day fiancé celebrity was merely being paranoid. Others even suggested that there's a rational explanation as to why the toy moved on its own. Like a trippy battery, man.
Yeah, man.
And that's what they say. There are even those who think it's not unusual for kids' toys to go off on their own. And it happens to many parents. Many parents have possessed children, but that's beside the point, Tim.
Right.
On the other hand, some told Corrine Martin's husband to pray, while some encouraged him to hire paranormal experts. Many also shared similar scary stories, suggesting that they believe Paul Stolley. So far, he has yet to give any updates on his haunted home. It also remains unclear if spooky incidents continue to happen.
I figured out a way we can turn up the scary on this story, Dave, and that's this.
Not mentioning 90-Day Fiancé every 3 seconds?
There's that. Or bring in the rest of the cast of 90-Day Fiancé to try and exorcise this ghost. There's that. I'm thinking this. You can really confirm the haunting there at the old residence if, when the haunted lawnmower is being pushed, the face of the spirit is reflected in the bubbles. Not only that, but if one of the...
Ooh, look at you taking it to the next step.
I know, right? This is going to get good. Are you ready for this? But not only that, but one of the child's dolls gets haunted and is pushing the lawnmower on top of it, comes over and gives Paul one of those COVID-19 quarantine haircuts with the haunted lawnmower at the same time, because magic blades are spinning underneath the lawnmower. How do you like that?
Yeah, COVID cuts are scary in themselves, Tim.
They are. So there you go. I've given you the entire Stephen King nightmare of this whole scenario, courtesy of your friends at 90-Day Fiancé.
I like it.
Be sure to check your local listings for times in your area.
Tim, Timothy Tim. I'm going to share my own paranormal encounter real quickly before we go on to the next story.
Sure.
Are you ready for this, Tim?
I'm ready for some football. Go ahead.
Y'all ready for this? So I've got in my possession a very highly sought after audio recorder that is known to be very popular in the world of paranormal investigating.
I saw you were looking for one, yeah.
Yes, I borrowed I'm trying to still buy my own so I could use it on Holzer Files, but I borrowed a Panasonic DR60.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I get it. I pop in my batteries. I'm in my hotel room. I wanted to make sure it worked, right?
Right.
So I've read reviews. The Panasonic DR60 is a farce because all it does is record internal noises, which create these false, scary sounds.
Also, supposedly the internal shielding is very bad on them, but
right for radio, right? So that you might get radio frequencies.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I heard those bits, so I thought, well, let me test it and see. Right. I'm pretty good with this. So I tested it out in the hall at my hotel. Nothing. No sounds. I just asked questions. Shh. In between, just dead silence. Right. In between, right? Now I'm outside, I'm inside, I'm in a building, they're using walkie-talkies, I'm figuring I might get some cross-play. Nothing till I get in my room, right?
Yep.
I record one, and I ask a question, and I accidentally, because I'm still getting used to this, I accidentally erased the first EVP that I had.
Oops. Yep.
But it was enough to alarm me to call Shane.
Okay.
And I said, Shane, come down to my room. Insert your own joke there, Tim. But I called Shane at my room, and I said, dude, listen. And I played it for him. He goes, no. And I said, yeah. I go, let's try another one. All right, Tim. I'm gonna play this for you. I hope it comes out okay.
Okay.
And this isn't a joke. This is truly from my DR60.
Okay.
And I'm in my room, and I believe it was in the previous EVP, I thought it said my name.
Okay.
So this is what happens.
Oh, his name?
Oh, hold on. I got to put it to the right time code here. Here we go.
Sorry, I didn't hear anything. If you're still with me, can you say my name? Can you say Dave?
Did you hear that?
I heard something, yeah.
It's this dark, sinister laugh. I'm going to send this over to you. So you could plug in the clearer version because I've got I recorded it onto my computer so that you can plug it in.
Yeah.
And you could play that right now.
Sorry, I didn't hear anything. If you're still with me, can you say my name? Can you say Dave?
I mean, how freaky is that, dude? That is a laugh. I don't care what you say. I was listening for words. It's just a straight up laugh at Shane and I.
Weird.
And we keep asking questions, and I got some more kind of mumbling, but it wasn't as defined as that laugh. And that was me sitting on my bed.
Weird.
In my room. So I have not EVP'd my bed again. I refuse to. Tim.
I'd be EVPing all over your bed.
Yeah. No, I don't want to. You see, when you turn on that light, Tim, you can't turn it back off.
Oh, that's
Here,
true.
Play it again for the people. Play it.
Sorry, I didn't hear anything. If you're still with me, can you say my name? Can you say Dave?
That's some kooky shit. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So here's the beauty of it. I did take it over with me to the haunted location and try to record, and I was getting nothing in 2 or 3 of the places.
Okay.
I eventually get EVP, but this shows me that it's not just recording internal sounds. I even had people that have walkies and radios on set to test it, and I'm getting nothing. It's not recording stray radio frequencies. And this thing, can you say my name? Can you say Dave? Where are you going to get a stray radio signal that just does that?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Unnerving. You know, it's not unnerving when our lovely listeners call in to share their stories, Tim. And since I just shared mine, let's let one of our listeners shine, shall we?
Sure.
This is a call. Remember, if you want to be a part of the show, you can be a part of the show by simply calling our Voices from Beyond voicemail. You can email in your stories to dave@darknessradio.com, or you can record your story and email those in to dave@darknessradio.com, and we will play them on an upcoming episode. But let's take a listen to this week's call.
Hi, Tim and Dave. This is Mary. My son definitely could see our relative who had passed when he was really little, and he doesn't remember any of it, but these were the experiences that he asked me to share with all of you, and he thinks it's really cool that he had this experience as a little kid. When he was a baby, his cousin died. She was 6, and he was 2 months old. And it was really tragic and awful. And we were honestly grateful that he was old enough we could fly up and see her before she died, and also come up when the services were. He got older, and the cemetery where she is buried is across the street from my parents' house. We were living in a different state. When we would come visit, we would always stay with my parents. And at one visit, it was a 6 or 7, 8, sometimes 9-hour drive, depending on traffic. My mom had told me that the bench, gravestone that they had planned for my niece was finally put into place, and she wanted me to go see it. So when we pulled up, she said, "Why don't you walk across the street and go and see the bench?" So Patrick and I went over, and he ran in front of me there was a field between the road and the cemetery, and he was running ahead of me. He's probably 2.5, maybe 3 years old. And he said, "Mom, look, I can see a little girl." And I said, "Where, Patrick?" And there'd be no way for him to know which of the many gravestones was hers. And he pointed and ran right over and sat down on her gravestone, her bench, and said, "Mommy, where did that girl go? I don't see her." And I said, "I don't know, but we always put a little stone on her bench, and if there's flowers, we water them, and we head back to my parents' house." So we still do all of these things, but at this particular first visit, when he was really little, we walked into the house, and he pointed to a picture of her on my parents' mantle and said to my parents, "That's her, Mimi, Papa, that's the girl I saw." And my parents asked him, "Well, what are you talking about? Where did you see her?" And he said, "Over there at the bench. I saw that girl." And we all just kind of felt good that he could see her, even if we can't. The other funny thing about that is when her funeral happened, it was December. It was an incredibly cold day, and a really close friend of mine had come over to the house so that I could walk across the street and attend the burial. We had a private burial and then a big service with friends and family, and a day or two later, I can't even remember. So for the burial, it was so cold out, I didn't want to bring, a 2-month baby outside, and my friend had come over, and she's very sensitive. So she sat in my parents' living room, and Patrick was in his crib asleep. And all of a sudden, she was kind of dozing off a little bit. It was maybe 9 or 10 in the morning. She was just kind of waiting around. And Patrick started screaming, crying upstairs. And my friend looked out the window, and the hearse was driving by at that moment. And she ran upstairs and picked him up out of the crib and held him. And he immediately stopped crying when the hearse was out of sight. So that was also pretty cool. The other thing that my son has seen is my ex-husband's father. And one time on Veterans Day, he had died on Veterans Day and was a veteran. And we were all talking about Veterans Day, and, Patrick was still little. And so, we were talking to him, even though he was too little, we were just talking to him about what Veterans Day means and what's important, and that his grandfather was a veteran. And he pointed to a corner of the room and said, "Oh, I see him. And we said, "Who?" And he said, "I see that guy you're talking about. I see him. He's smiling at us." And he kept pointing to a corner of the room. So that was kind of cool. All right, so the last story was that I took Patrick swimming in the pool, and it was a pool, we lived in a condo. He happened to just toddle away from me in 2 seconds and fell in the pool, but he caught himself, and very quickly, it was all quickly and very close. I got him right out of the pool, but it was still a little scary, and he was crying. And my father-in-law at the time looked a lot like my husband at the time, my son's father. And so just after this incident, in addition to him pointing to that corner of the room and saying, "I see him," he kind of recovered from the shock of it and stopped crying, and he was pointing to the fence that was next to us. And he said, "Well, there's Daddy." And, my ex-husband wasn't there. And I said, No, that's just the fence, Patrick. And he said, "No, Daddy's right there. Can't you see him?" And we had this argument for a couple of minutes, and he kept pointing, right there, right there, right there. I see him. I can see him. And, my ex-husband and his father looked very, very similar. And Patrick had just insisted at that age that he was seeing somebody standing there. And, of course, it would make sense that his grandfather showed up to, be protective in that awful moment of Patrick falling in the pool. So if Patrick hears this, he's going to tell me about it. And I love that we all enjoy your show. Thanks, guys, so much.
Another great story. Thank you so much for sending that to us. We appreciate it. All right, Tim, in an ever-growing list of weird revelations 2020 has thrown at us, the TV show EastEnders in England, which is very popular, very famous, long-running TV series, the star Sean Williamson has revealed he's somewhat of a real-life Ghostbuster after confronting one in his home. Yeah, you heard that right. Turns out the actor, best known for playing Barry on the soap, is quite useful to have around when it comes to run-ins with the paranormal. Revealing his close encounter, Sean explained he and his family moved into a new home in Maidstone, Kent, when they were bothered by an otherworldly force. When we moved in, we heard a lot of banging. It was bad enough at first that we kept running upstairs to check that we weren't being burgled, he told The Sun. It's poltergeisty. Poltergeisty, Tim. Yeah, that was the sequel we never got to see in America, Poltergeisty.
Yeah, that was the fourth one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't throw things around, but it does make a lot of noise, he says. Thankfully, he had the perfect pal on hand to give him advice, the late Derek Aykroyd, who starred along Sean on Celebrity Big Brother in 2017. Though the medium, who died this year after a short illness, Sean discovered the pesky ghost was a woman named Rosemary. He said, I had to start screaming at Rosemary. I scream at it and shout at it saying, "You're not frightening me. Stop it." And all that sort of stuff. He says, thankfully, the trouble has now subsided and she's been very quiet, allowing the family to live on in peace. Well, at least they know that someone is listening, Tim. Yeah. I wish that worked with my children. Shut up! Knock it off! And they would just stop. It doesn't, though. Let me just put that out there, Tim.
You can wish in one hand and do something else in the other, Dave.
You could deuce in the other, Tim, and see which one gets filled first. And I will tell you, the deucing hand will always win.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, the deucing hand, which is the name of my new psychological thriller.
You know what? I would wait in line for that and actually get your autograph on that deal. Yeah, because
I'll tell you, I like you. You wouldn't have to wait in much of a line. I'd let you cut up.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah,
I mean, I'm still going to charge you the $30 for the autograph copy, but you know.
Well,
we're not that close. Let's get, money, son.
Would you wear a glove in the deucing hand? Because
of course.
That, with germs these days, I mean, there's not enough hand sanitizer to get that deal clean. I'm just saying.
I concur.
Yeah.
All right, let's get going here. Cryptids and kids, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a fanciful mix. A former Mantachi teacher is turning his love of Bigfoot and the unexplained into fiction for children. Former Mantachi mathematics teacher Dr. Timothy Mounts is pretty sure he believes in Bigfoot and aliens and ghosts, Gigantopithecus for certain. He's also pretty sure everybody else should believe in those things too. Well, at least a little. I don't think a person should be too all in on everything, but I don't think a person should be too hard the other way either, Mounts said via telephone. He's taking a stroll around his neighborhood in North Carolina, just a short drive away from the heart of Bigfoot country. His comments backed by the din of the outdoors, of course, a bird song, and the crunch of his feet on the pavement, Tim. Huh? They're just really painting a nice picture here. Mm-hmm. A PhD, a college professor, Mounts believes curiosity is important. The world is vast and complicated. There's a lot that the living people on it yet have to learn about each other and about the surroundings. I think it's healthy and scientific to be skeptical, but to approach anything with an open mind, he said. Unless, of course, Tim's trying to convince you to eat a mayo and Nutella sandwich.
Oh.
I won't be open-minded about it.
Dude, no, the mayo goes on the outside of the bread when you're frying it. When you see that's how it goes. It's
Mounts. I'm going to just go back to the article and try to clear my palate of your nastiness. Mounts recently published his second children's book, Let's Play Tennis, a baby Bigfoot and baby Yeti book, under his semi-pseudonym, Dr. Mounts. That's not much of a pseudonym when your name is Dr. Mounts. The book tells the story of a group of friends, baby Bigfoot, baby Yeti, baby Sasquatch, and baby Giganto, who are sent to the store to pick up avocados and sun-dried tomatoes, but it doesn't take the crew long to get distracted by an impromptu game of tennis. And then for that impromptu game of tennis to be interrupted by confusion over the sport's baffling, at least outsiders, scoring system. Oh my God, he took what could have been a charming, wonderful book and is teaching us tennis, Tim. I can't stand for this.
Well, with a name like Dr. Mounts, you got to have a gimmick. I
guess. Yeah. Written and illustrated and published by Mounts over a roughly 9-month period, the book is very much a reflection of its creator. Honestly, it's quintessentially me. So lame and tennis-driven. Okay.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of me and all my personalities in there, he said. That includes a love for tennis and Southern culture, humor and kids, and cryptids. Don't forget the cryptids. For those unfamiliar with the term, a cryptid, Tim. Come on, get in close. Let me teach you a little something here, Timmy.
Sure. Okay.
A cryptid, little Timmy, is a creature claimed but never proved to exist. You know, like another living human being that would eat Nutella and mayonnaise. Think the Loch Ness Monster or abominable snowman.
Together.
El Chupacabra or, of course, Bigfoot. Or as I like to call Tim, the Nutella mayo beast. Born into a superstitious family on Halloween night, old Dr. Mounts has had an interest in the spooky, the paranormal, the extraterrestrial, and the cryptozoological since he was a kid. He grew up in Pontotoc County on a diet of Stephen King and unsolved mysteries. Boy, if that's all you're eating, Tim, I'd hate to pass that. Paper cuts abound. Ooh, ouch.
Yeah.
Arguably the scariest show ever created, at least to those of a certain age during its run. Despite his family's prediction and predilection for not prediction, Tim. It's predilection. There's a difference. Can you learn it next time, Tim, so we don't have the same mistake made?
Sorry.
Despite his family's predilection for paranormal, they were also strongly religious. Mounts felt that these two traits complemented each other well. The Bible is full of what could, to those not of the faith, be considered inexplicable, paranormal. Even angels could be considered extraterrestrial. Scandalous, Tim. Scandalous.
Yep.
I always felt like my religious background supported my interest in all this stuff, he said. It doesn't do it for everybody, but it does for me. With the paranormal, with Bigfoot, with aliens, and with UFOs. As he got older, Mounts fell in love with the late-night radio program Founded in 1988 and originally hosted by Art Bell, the show has been given voice to hundreds of guests who claim to have had any number of inexplicable encounters. Before every ghost hunter, Mothman witness, and time traveler had his own blog or Facebook page, the show was the primary way, with ties to the enigmatic, shared their stories with a wider audience. Now, of course, Dr. Mounts has stepped up his game, has become an avid fan of a very popular paranormal podcast known as Darkness Radio.
Really?
I'd like to think so, Tim.
Oh.
I'd like to think so.
Okay.
I'm predicting that that's what will be in the follow-up article.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
He says, this paranormal talk radio has been a huge influence on me. I love it. I love the format of it. I love listening to Art Bell and Dave Schrader. I love listening to people call in. The show, which still runs, has been an influence on Mounts. And the name of his micro-publishing company, Comatose Tacos, is an anagram of its name. Comatose Tacos, Tim. In the early 90s, Mounts heard a story from a coworker about a close encounter with Possum Head Man. Did you hear that, Tim? Possum Head Man.
That's an actual thing?
That's what he's telling us here. The guy claimed the creature almost killed him and his grandfather and brother during a fishing trip. Even Mounts, who was drawn to such local legends, was skeptical. I was very taken aback, he said. I was like, what did you say? Possum Head Man lives in the woods near Dumas, Mississippi. Not Dumas, Tim. Not dumbass,
Not
but
dumbass,
Dumas. Yeah. He's got the head of a possum and the body of a man, hence the term Possum Head Man, Tim.
Wasn't that a Neil Young album?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It sounded preposterous even for Mounts. I didn't know exactly how to take that. He said if somebody tells you a weird or strange story on the face of it, you can't take it seriously too much if it's just one person. But many years later, Mounts was recalling the story of Possum Head Man to a friend when one of that friend's coworkers said he knew of the legend and claimed to have himself survived an encounter with the creature. Years later, during his stint teaching at the Mantachi Attendance Center from 2002 to 2010, Mounts brought up the subject to fellow teacher Mark Neves, who said he was also familiar with the local legend. Neves, by the way, now co-hosts a podcast about cryptids with Mounts. The subject of their first episode, Tim?
Yeah.
Possum Head Man.
Look out for the Possum Head Man.
Let's get him on the show. That was a great Neil Young.
Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah.
We should get him on and talk about Possum Head Man. Tim, make it happen.
I will. I'll find the guy. I'll lure him out with my Neil Young impression.
There you should, yeah. Or scare him back in. I'm not sure. That just kind of blew my mind, Mounts said. It was probably spanning 2 decades there of many different people who all knew about the cryptozoological legend that just really blew my mind. Since then, Mounts' interest in local legends, the cryptozoological, the unexplainable, and all things strange has just simply grown. When he chose to try writing his first children's book, a decision he credits to his 2 young children, and the dozens upon dozens of children's books he'd read to them, he naturally used his interest in Bigfoot and his ilk as an inspiration to writing. The easiest way to write, he said, is to write about familiar things, hence cryptid children. The result was Squatching by Woods on a Snowy Evening, a semi-parody of the famous Robert Frost poem. That's kind of how my love for the paranormal and the mysterious melded with children's books, Mounts said. My brain has been inundated with children's books. The promotion of that book and now its follow-up took Mounts deeper into the world of Bigfoot fanaticism, to conferences, festivals dedicated solely or partially to the creature. Sometime back, Mounts attended a Bigfoot conference in North Carolina. While there, he took time to get to know some of the attendees and speak with a handful of locals about their Bigfoot encounters. I went out that this story is turning into a Parashare as well, Tim. Yeah. I hope you enjoy the multi-layered complexity of the show even more when you see that I find news stories that are not just news stories, but also weave in their own paranormal narrative.
Oh, I do. Not only that, but it got me thinking that it was a certain other show's host's birthday the other day.
Oh, well, happy birthday to that other show host.
I'm just saying. I mean, not that I was keeping track or anything.
Happy birthday. I went out that first night to some local places, he said, knocked a few back, talked a little. I heard a lot of great stories. A few years back, Mounts went on what he describes as a personal Bigfoot journey, stopping by Bigfoot hotspots, landmarks, and museums on his way between North Carolina and Mississippi. In January, he traveled into North Carolina's Uwharrie National Forest. Uwharrie? I don't know how to say it. Uwharrie. Uwharrie.
Sure.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Considered a Bigfoot or a hotbed of Bigfoot activity, not a Bigfoot of hotbed activity, Tim. Of course, maybe Bigfoot's got a hotbed. Who am I to judge?
Well, if it's smoking, don't come knocking.
That's right. It's a very remote, isolated national park, he said. It's huge. Plenty of room for anything out there. Although he didn't have an experience on that trip, he's looking forward to trying again. If at first you don't succeed, Tim.
Try again.
Since penning his first book, Mounts has learned that real or not, a creature like Bigfoot can serve a purpose. The hunt, learn more about the creature. It's weirdly written. Or even if it exists at all, cuts across all demographics, faith, gender, hometown, race, economic status. None of that stuff matters among the members of the Bigfoot community. They all share a common fascination, and that brings them together. It's a diverse group of people, but they're very supportive of each other, he said of the Bigfoot hunting community. To Mounts, the members of the Bigfoot community inhabit an idealized world, one of unity and full of mystery. He apparently doesn't hear about all the infighting that we hear about.
Right. He stays far away from it. He's
the cryptid chaos narrative.
Peace-loving, possum-headed man hanging out with Bigfoot type of doctor.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot to fit in a title card.
It is, yeah.
I think I've only got, I'm just checking here, I think I've got just 2-3 stories left here. Just 2 or 3, Tim.
Just 2 or 3. Okay.
2 or 3. Let's wrap up, shall we?
Sure.
All right. Our next story, Tim, takes us to Bolivia.
Oh, Bolivia. That's
Bolivian,
where the best Coke comes from.
Wow.
Just kidding.
Cola? I like the Mexico Coke with the real cane sugar.
Yeah, with the real
not
sugar,
yeah, not that corn syrupy crap here in the United States.
Right.
Bolivian orchestra stranded in a haunted German castle surrounded by wolves during a pandemic, Tim. A Bolivian orchestra group has been stranded in a German castle for 73 days after the countries closed their borders during the coronavirus pandemic. The musicians, some of whom are as young as 17 years old, they arrived in Germany, Tim, not Bolivia.
Oh.
It was just a Bolivian orchestra group.
Oh, okay.
So, no good Coke in Germany, I guess.
No.
They arrived in Germany for a spring concert tour just as COVID-19 crisis was beginning, the BBC reports. However, their concerts were soon called off as Germany imposed a social gathering ban. Their flight back to Bolivia was canceled after the country closed its borders as coronavirus precautions. Since then, the group has been staying safe at the Rheinsberg Palace, a 600-year-old castle located an hour and a half northwest of Berlin. Our bus broke down on the motorway. I remember joking that this was bad luck and perhaps our concerts would be canceled, but never did I think it would actually happen, said one member by the name of Carlos. The ancient estate was home to German royalty dating back to the 1500s, including Friedrich the Great. Jawohl, der Kommandant. They think that is who's haunting the castle's halls. We all joke that Friedrich's ghost is following us and trying to trip us up. I don't usually believe in such things, but it does feel as if there are ghosts on the grounds, said Camille Martella, a 20-year-old member of the orchestra. The castle grounds and surrounding woodlands are also home to more than a dozen pack of wolves. One member, Tracy Prado, said she saw 3 wolves while out for a walk. I froze in fear, but they were just play fighting and moved on. The nearby town of Rheinsberg has been mostly welcoming to the musicians who socially distance themselves and remain on the castle grounds. The group stays at a guest house on the estate, which has a kitchen staff that drops off food for their unplanned guests, which is very kind of them. People have also donated clothes to the group during their longer than expected stay. Meas Music, the festival at which the orchestra was going to perform, has helped raise funds for the group. Director Berno Odo told the BBC that the accommodation costs are as high as $38,400 a month.
Whoa!
Whoo, doggies. Some of the musicians are still able to communicate with their family members back home, but they say their temporary lodging is far from a vacation. People back home think we're in a fairy tale land. I've had hundreds of messages telling me to stop complaining and that I'm living like a princess in a German castle, Carlos said. We feel abandoned. The BBC reports that the Bolivian embassy hopes to get the orchestra home on a flight in early June.
$38,000 a month.
They eat a lot of Bolivian caviar, Tim. They have needs.
I was going to say, what are you eating over there? Are you feeding the wolves, too, while you're at it? Well, you got to keep them at bay somehow, though, I guess.
Yeah. I got to get back into this. We've got another story that's on the books, and then I have one that was sent to me by many people, but for some reason the story is missing now. So I'm going to look that up in a second here. But let's, as we wrap out on ghosty stuff, let's do this. The New York house declared legally haunted, Tim, is for sale. If you got $1.9 million on hand for a new home, and you're okay with a 5-bedroom Victorian that comes with some, shall we say, history, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
What if I were to tell you it was haunted?
Haunted, you say?
Well, turns out I'm actually legally obligated to do that if I'm going to sell you the house, Tim. I don't know. Tim. I'm legally obligated to do that, and the infamous house that made the obligation clear is for sale. Now, it's tough enough to live in a haunted house, even if a ghost might be good company, but it's even harder to sell one. Many buyers, understandably, don't want to move in with a spirit, or if they're skeptics, they just might not like living in a place that's well known in local lore to be haunted and could attract other gawkers. So maybe if you're selling the house, you just won't tell the buyers. That's what Helen Ackley thought when she sold her Nyack, New York home in the 1989. And her failure to disclose her home's history led to the infamous Ghostbusters ruling. When Jeffrey Stembowski bought the home from Ackley, she declined to tell him about the full history of the Victorian charmer that dated back to the 1890s. The home, located at 1 La Veta Place, was somewhat infamously haunted, something the Ackleys didn't know when they bought it in the 1960s. But they coped. They claimed, among other things, to see the ghost there and that their bed shook quite often. But since no one told them back in the day, they kept quiet. When they sold to Stembowski, he wasn't a local. He wouldn't know. But he found out, and while the house was in escrow, decided that he didn't want to live in a haunted house, backed out of buying, and demanded his down payment back. Ackley refused to let him out of the contract or refund the money, and a lawsuit ensued. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court of New York on the question of whether the buyer could get out of a contract on the basis that the seller didn't disclose the house was haunted. And the court, surprisingly, Tim, said yes.
Really?
In a truly delightful ruling, the New York Supreme Court stated, in his pursuit of a legal remedy for fraudulent misrepresentation against the seller, plaintiff hasn't a ghost of a chance. I am nevertheless moved by the spirit of equity to allow the buyer to seek rescission of the contract of sale and recovery of his down payment. Oh, a clever writer indeed, Tim. Which included, the court ruled this way because the home had been included on walking tours of haunted houses and even featured in magazines of haunted houses, which included interviews with Ackley. Because she held out the house as haunted in the press, Ackley was not allowed to deny the existence of the resident ghosts, Tim. She couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Yeah. So the court wrote, as a matter of law, this house is haunted. The real reason that the case is taught in law schools across the country, though, is to get the idea of what needs to be disclosed in contracts. Buyers need to beware, but sellers have a duty to disclose important things like ghosts, Tim.
Ghosts?
Uh-huh. Since the 1991 decision, the house on La Veta has become even more famous, and now it's back on the market, listed for a cool $1.9 million. The 5-bedroom, 5-bath, 4,629 square foot home is breathtaking, but for some reason hasn't sold yet. That's a shame, considering one of its previous residents was lead singer Ingrid Michaelson, who called it a magical home. It is a beautiful looking place, Tim. You got to say that.
Yeah.
Nice looking little joint. Okay, in our final story, Tim.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to look it up here real quickly.
Okay.
So give me 1 second. You and I have had a long time belief that and battle over what's going to take us out first.
Oh, yeah. So we have the big bet going on here. So it's over a box of Twinkies. I have a staunch belief that AI will eventually morph into Skynet, much like the movie Terminator, and consume us all.
I, on the other hand, have much more realistic scenario of the rise of the dead coming back to consume us in a zombie apocalypse. However, Tim,
realistic.
There is one other story that always is kind of out there on the fringes. That always seems to butt up against both of us from time to time, nudging us, reminding us that there may be a third equally important alternative, Tim.
Third, you say?
The rise of the monkey empire, Tim. The rise of the planet of the apes.
See, I just think monkeys are adorable. I would take that.
Let's listen to this story. Authorities in India say a troop of monkeys went bananas, Tim. When they attacked a medical official stealing blood samples belonging to patients who had tested positive for COVID-19. The incident occurred on the Meerut Medical College campus in the northern India state of Uttar Pradesh, where the medics had collected samples from 3 people suspected of being infected by the COVID-19 virus, according to India.com. An eyewitness video shows one of the monkeys chewing the sample collection kits on top of a tree. Part of the kits were later seen lying strewn on the ground, to the concern of local officials. Sky News, Tim, almost Skynet, reports that since lockdown measures imposed 2 months ago, monkeys have been congregating in places that were normally crowded with humans. However, some suspect the monkeys are struggling because the human food they normally consume has been severely reduced. Hence the start, Tim, of the Great Monkey Uprising of 2020.
That's true.
I'm just saying. Yeah. He stole it. They lick it. Then suddenly it goes into them. It turns into something else. One of them sneezes on a banana. Tim eats that banana. It morphs into a new disease. And suddenly the apes can talk. Humans are subservient. And the world as we know it is upset. That's how I see it.
Wait a minute. How did sneezing on a banana and me eating it or whatever turn into monkeys talking?
Dude, I'm not here to judge. It's just science. Science, Tim. And that's it for this week. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back again next week with more supernatural news. But tomorrow, Don Wildman joins us. He joins us, Tim.
That too.
Yeah. Words is hard. Tomorrow, Don Wildman joins us as we unearth buried worlds, Tim, and look into vampire culture and more with Don Wildman. That's tomorrow, right here on the best in Paranormal Talk Radio. I'm Dave. That's Tim. This is Darkness Radio.